Welcome to the Unstoppable Leadership Spotlight, influential leaders and their game-changing insights. I'm Jaclyn Strominger, CEO and founder of Leap to Your Success. That's leaptoyoursuccess.com. We help entrepreneurs, leaders, and CEOs grow their business, become unstoppable high achievers in their careers and life, gaining that 1% edge. We believe every professional has the power within them to leap to their greatest success that not only will impact their life, but the lives of the people they touch. So stick around to the end of the show and we will share with you how you can be our next guest. So stick around for those 15 to 20 minutes and let's be unstoppable. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Unstoppable Leadership Spotlight podcast. I am Jaclyn Strominger, your host. And on this podcast, we hear from absolutely amazing leaders and their game-changing insights. And today, we are going to hear from Chris Hood. Now, what you are going to get from this, I just want you to understand, listen to this because this is going to be your change in your belief in AI. Whatever you're thinking about, trust me, it's probably not the right thing, or maybe it needs to be changed. Chris is a wealth of information and will get you thinking about AI in the absolute right way. So why should we listen to Chris? Well, he's a strategist, he is an author, he's a speaker, and he has become a pivotal thought leader in integrating customer success with digital strategy. With over 35 years of experience in business and technology development, Chris has built a reputation for fostering customer-centric cultures. And he is the author of INCAPABLE and Customer Transformation, which offers profound insights into aligning businesses with technologies like AI and evolving consumer behaviors. So, Chris, we could talk and I could go on about all the great things you've done, but welcome to the Unstoppable Leadership Spotlight podcast.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier, obviously pre-show, and, AI, as we shared, I don't think there is a day that goes by in the media that you don't hear somebody talking about AI. So you wrote this great book. I can't wait to read it. So I have to apologize. I have not read it yet, but AI in the workplace brings fear, excitement, and a whole bunch of things. What is the thing that you would like leaders to know and understand about AI?
Yeah, I think the fact that it's in the media every single day is part of the problem. If there's one thing that all people listening to this podcast can take away after this conversation, I'm hoping it's to shift your mindset to do a little bit more exploration and learn a little bit more about what the true capabilities of AI actually are. And I think because, as you mentioned, not only in social media, but also we've grown up with movies like Terminator or War Games for the last 40 plus years that all focused on various elements of AI. So I've often said that we've gotten our understanding of AI through movies and media and television. One of my favorite shows of all time actually is Person of Interest, which follows along with
Love that show.
Yeah, it falls around with an AI that predicts people's fate. So when we start to buy into this belief system of what we are told about AI, most of which is hype, then it clouds the actual understanding and true capabilities. So all of the fears that you kind of touched on, I'm going to lose my job to AI, or AI is going to take over the world, right? All of those things are being perpetuated because of the media and marketing and, everybody talking about it at conferences and so on. And so, yeah, I hope that in the short time we do have together that we can really start to dissect this and shift some of your understanding so that you can be a little bit more critical in your thinking and approach to how you want to integrate AI into your business.
I love what you're saying. And when you're talking about person of interest, obviously that's, it's following your AI is following the person around. And of course, war games, all I keep thinking about is, do you want to play a game? Right.
Yes.
That, right. And that's not really what I mean, it is, but it's not the be all end all. So if I'm a leader today, what do you think is the best way to, I'm going to start with the question of how do you bring AI into the workplace and as a leader do it without the fear of your team, because
Yeah.
also on the other side of it, the customer side of it, and I will ask your opinion on this too, is like the first customer any company has are the employees. So
Yeah.
how do we not keep their fear out?
Yeah, so there's two elements that you're touching on here. You've got the employees and you've got your customers. And I think actually you handle them mostly the same, but slightly nuanced, right? And it does start with full transparent disclosure. We talk about open communication and transparency within leadership. You have to come into this and be honest. Imagine if you were selling something to a customer and you basically said, yeah, I spent the last 5 days working on this project for you, and really it only took you 5 minutes because you shoved it through some artificial intelligence to generate it. Would your customer appreciate knowing that you used AI to do it? And yet there's a stigma, like I'm not going to tell them, like hey, I did this work, I didn't use AI to do this work. You lose trust in that process. And there's really no difference with employees. I would suggest that the very first thing you do is you say, hey, everybody, we're thinking about looking at AI and exploring ways that we can use AI. We haven't made any decisions yet because we really don't understand what this is capable of for our business. So we're going to bring it in. We're going to let everybody play with it. And we're going to set up sort of a sandbox. And look, we're going to potentially reward people who come up with new and original ideas, creative ways that they can leverage AI for their job. We're not talking about replacing your job. We're looking at this as an enhancement for your job. But because we don't know everything and we don't really fully grasp this yet, let's play with it, all of us together. That openness, that transparency, that learning process, that procedure, the psychological safety of leveraging other people in the process are all going to help you be a little bit more beneficial from introducing it into your organization.
I love what you just said for a bunch of different things. I just kind of want to pinpoint a couple of key, like, listeners, as you're hearing this, I want you to really take away if something that's I think is at the crux of everything, and that is transparent and disclosure and being honest. You To me, great leadership starts with sharing that vision of what you want. So when you're bringing AI in, or you're bringing something new, or whatever the next new thing is, letting your team know about it and sharing it versus the surprise and getting their buy-in.
Yeah. You just touched on something. You said sharing the vision of what you want. It's okay to share a vision of something you don't know anything about and you don't know if you want it yet. Right? I think too often as leaders, we come across as, well, I have all the answers. This is my vision. Follow along with me. Well, be humble about this. I have no clue what we're going to do with this thing, but hey, let's figure it out together. I think both approaches are excellent.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's like, because as a leader, the best thing you can do is to share that, but you're empowering your people. Leadership is about empowering people and helping them rise up. And I love the idea of sharing that. So, in that same vein, what would you say to a leader? How do you, how do they empower their teams? As you just shared, like, here's what we're going to do, but are there any other key points that you would say, you know what? Here's a flow, here's a process.
Yeah, I think again, you start to look at areas of your business where you might want some sort of improvement where you might need some enhancement, maybe you need 5 people doing a particular role, but you currently only have 3 people. Could AI help you offset some of that? So you could start to strategically look at the business and areas where you might find opportunities and then explore, can AI help us in these areas we are potentially struggling in? The other side of this, going back to the customer, I would argue, don't ever start with the customer. Don't ever start with saying, we're going to bring AI in to fix this customer thing. And I think that's the knee-jerk reaction. A lot of what I'm seeing out there is like how AI can personalize experience, how AI can help us with customer success, how AI can help us with support calls, and so on and so on. All of those are actually flawed in reason because those all require some sort of uniquely human capability that AI can't actually duplicate. And this is where we get into that balancing act, is understanding what AI can actually do versus what you need a real human person to do, and then trying to figure out where you can help the human person be better at their job, and which it's communicating with consumers, and not hand that over completely to an AI. We've all been on a phone call where it says, press 1 to reach this person, press 2 to, and we're all sitting here, pound, 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 real person, right? This is also why you look at somebody like Discover that has an entire campaign that's wrapped around, you can speak to a real person. They are going anti-AI and robots, and it's working for them because there are plenty of consumers out there that genuinely just want to talk to somebody. I also use this as an example. If you go to a grocery store today, you usually have an option. Yes, there are self-checkout lines where you can easily, conveniently, and maybe you don't want to talk to somebody, go out and do your own self-checkout. There are plenty of people who despise self-checkout and want to actually go and have somebody, support them. But in both of those, in that situation, you actually have the choice. Right. You have the choice of not talking to somebody or talking to somebody. And right now, a lot of businesses are looking at this as, well, we're going to shove AI down people's throats. We're not going to give them the option. And what it's actually doing is it's alienating those customers from your business.
Yep. I am so kind of glad that you brought this up, because I think for me personally, it's a pet peeve. I'm one of those people, like if I call a credit card company, if I call somebody, I want to know that I can easily speak to a person. I'm like, what's the direct, like what numbers do I have to press? And I ask all the time, what are the sequence that I can just get right to a person? Right. And I think this is also really important for leaders to understand. As humans, we need human connection. And it's really important for us to, I believe, as a leader, if you can be like the Discover and keep the human connection in with your customers, it's going to make your people happy. It's going to make your employees happier.
Yeah. Just to touch on that, we talk, and I'm sure you've probably had an episode previously about this topic, that one of the most critical traits of a leader would be emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. Emotional intelligence, just by definition, is a uniquely human trait. There is no artificial intelligence on the planet that can have emotional intelligence. It can't be empathetic. And yet all of these core values that we look at as a human to say, well, I'm going to have a conversation with an employee about a difficult situation or conflict resolution, even from a consumer who is calling you in looking for that support. And they are frazzled because they've just gone through some chaotic event in their lives that actually has nothing to do with why they're calling in. And you're going to hand that experience off to some artificial entity, Like
Spot.
these types of experiences, the emotional intelligence, the empathetic responses, those are all uniquely human. And
Right.
those are experiences we as humans crave. You are not selling your products or services to a robot. You are selling them to other human beings. And so, why would you ever want to actually hand those experiences off so that they become more artificial?
That it's so true. It's it's so important to understand this because I don't ever want it to replace a human when they're talking to me about a product, a customer. There, as you said, it said the emotional intelligence and having empathy and being able to relate to people. And I think it's it's something that we need. Having communications verbally is something that leaders need to foster more in, and communication is so important in the workforce. And we were not meant to just, and I have to, not to go on my soapbox here, but as an older person in my 50s, I still like the phone. Yes, text does matter for some things, but I think that we need to teach people the art of communication and the art of conversation.
It's a trait or a skill that you can call it that we are drastically losing. There are two primary skills that artificial intelligence is corrupting. The first is communication, as you just said, and part of that is also social media, right? The
Yep.
technology over the course of the last 10 years has drastically changed the way we actually communicate. So it's not totally because of artificial intelligence, but it's increasing it. And critical thinking. Critical thinking is actually declining directly because of artificial intelligence. And so when you start to lose those human traits of basic communication and critical thinking, yeah, we are dooming ourselves in the process. I mean, to your point about communication, imagine if I showed up, or I'll say, imagine I didn't show up, and who you are talking to right now is the agent version of Chris Hood with a artificial intelligence voice, and you were conducting this interview in that way. The conversation would be completely different. It would be
Right.
unauthentic. It would be,
Right.
not genuine. And yet there are companies out there that are putting in place artificial intelligent agents to run interviewing processes. Like you get a call from an agent. Hello, I am with this company and I'm here to ask you questions. Thank you for your response, right? Like, what's your first instinct? Well, I don't want to work for that company. They don't care about me, right? So we have to continuously think about it in these contexts because otherwise as I said, we are dooming ourselves.
Yeah. All right. So I have a kind of a going backwards a little bit. What made you write the book?
Yeah. So the first reason I wrote the book was because I was seeing all of this stuff online and social media about AI. And I was like, but that's not true. Like, that's not how it works. I put the very first sentence in the book in the opening says, I should have written this book sooner. And I genuinely feel that way. Like this book is probably something that I could have written 3 years ago, 4 years ago. But as I started to see the hype of AI increase, it also started to generate a failure or, I call it an ideology around artificial intelligence that was not aligned with actually reality. You think about like even a belief system. I'm not going to suggest to anybody who, everybody out there might have different religious belief systems, but artificial intelligence has now become one of these religious style belief systems that it could be infallible or infallible. This is where I shove AI in the middle of it, which gets to, the title infallible. But yeah, that belief system, the ideology of artificial intelligence is completely reshaping how we look at technology, how we do business, how leaders are responding, how consumers are interacting with your business. And I thought that it was a really good reason, really, to go and dive into this and what that belief system was.
Yeah, no, and I really, I applaud you for writing it. When I think about AI, I think the biggest thing that we as, as leaders, and whether you're a CEO or you're running a team or you're the CEO of you, to not forget about that human connection. And I'm going to go back to, you know, I don't even know when it was. I'm going to just say in the 70s. I'm dating myself here. But there was a commercial, and I believe, well, I'm not going to say which airline it was because I actually don't really remember. But the gist of the conversation was there was the head of a company. He had all his salespeople standing all around him. And he said, "We just lost our longest customer." And what he did is he handed out plane tickets. And he said, "We're going to get on the plane. We've gotten used to, okay, we've gotten used to faxing, right? We've gotten used to, the phone. We need to be in front of our clients. We need to see our clients. We need to shake their hands." And he handed them all plane tickets. And then, the sales team asked him, like, "What are you going to do?" He goes, "I'm going to go see that client that we just lost."
Yeah.
And that's what I think of AI that way too, right? In the sense that, we've evolved, but we have to always remember, again, to going back to the human element and that emotional element, the emotional intelligence. We cannot forget about that part of it, as leaders.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Continuing with your plane story, I've often suggested and I've had conversations with American Airlines and United Airlines. I've consulted with them, and I've asked point blank, when was the last time your CEO flew somewhere, coach, and sat next to somebody and just experienced that for themselves and talked with a consumer next to them? Most CEOs are void of any type of actual consumer experience. They're not going out into the field. The old TV show Undercover Boss, right? Like no one's actually doing that. There, even Undercover Boss, I've argued, is an example of how you can get insights into your operations and employees, but no one is doing that from a consumer perspective. Is sitting there and act. It's like, oh well, we have a marketing team, we have some agency who's doing that for us. No, it's your responsibility as a leader. Your number one responsibility is ensuring that your customers are happy and that you understand what your customers' needs are. And in my first book, Customer Transformation, it talks about this process, which, as you're alluding to with AI, I right now everybody is focused on, well, let's start with AI. Let's bring AI in. Let's then figure out what AI can do for us, and then we'll figure out how do we, pitch this to our consumers. And it's so backwards that that you may get into a position where you are building something that doesn't even require AI. And so I've kind of started to simplify this where it's you have to start with your customer first. You then will figure out the technology last. And even after you figure out what the technology is, maybe you're going to use AI because there are plenty of solutions out there that will solve your customers' problems without you ever having to touch AI. And if you can simplify that process, customer first, figure out what their problem is that you want to solve, then figure out what the technology is going to be, and then maybe you want to introduce AI in that process, I think you're going to be a lot more successful.
Yeah, I love that. Customer first should always be that.
Yeah.
Always, think of that customer first. It really is important. So, as you're, you know, as we're talking about, AI and the customer, what are you seeing out there? Like, as you're talking to people, what's what are other people, experience with AI? that maybe can actually go back to the leaders and saying like what other people are experiencing, like or dislike, besides just hitting the phone, like, because we all hate that.
Yeah, I do think a lot of it right now is all bandwagon, right? It's like I just have to jump on this because, fear of missing out, if you want to call it that, FOMO. But everybody is kind of just jumping on like, oh, we need AI, let's figure it out. And that's, I think, the biggest problem because, again, a lot of this, we talked beforehand, this isn't really anything new in terms of technology. When websites came out, everybody said, "Oh, I need a website," and then overnight, everybody became web design experts. And then, in 2000s, Apple obviously brilliantly said, "Hey, you need an app for that." And then so everybody was rushing out to get apps, and everybody overnight became mobile app experts. And AI is just the next part of that trend. It's like, oh, well, I need AI. And everybody overnight has suddenly become an AI agent or, some sort of expert in the topic, which none of them really are. So this is, a continuous type of cycle that we experience. But because of that, I think right now it's the bandwagon effect. Everybody is jumping on to, we need to figure out how we're going to use AI. And the problem with that is that they're trying to force something that doesn't necessarily need to happen. And so I don't think we've reached quite yet. There's, we have this thing called a hype cycle, and we're up in this hype, location. And then the next step is sort of called this trough of disillusionment, which is where you basically realize that all of the investments you've made and all of the rationales you've had to introduce AI are actually not panning out. The ROI isn't there. And now you're like, now what do I do? So we are slowly starting to reach that point where people are starting to, recognize the analytical or, the results of their process and implementations. And, it's not necessarily looking good. No matter what you're going to read online, you're going to read a bunch of stuff that says ROI at all-time high. You know who the ROIs are at an all-time high? All of the companies who are selling AI to you to use it for something that you don't need, right? I go back to, you mentioned the 70s. It's the pet rock of 2025. That's where we're at right now. It's, you're buying something you don't need, making a bunch of other people extremely wealthy in the process. And so if you can recognize this, it goes back to what we started with. If I can shift your mindset so that you actually see this and recognize it, then you as a leader are going to be in a lot better situation.
Right, right. Well, that is so true. Right. It's, understand that right now it's not the be all end all. And don't think that if you're not in it, you're missing out, or that you're not a good leader because you're not using it. Use your skills of true communication. And as you said, customer first.
Yeah. And look, for anybody who's listening, who's thinking, oh, this is just one of those naysayers who don't really know what they're talking about, or whatever you want to say, which, again, personally, I don't really care. I wrote a book on AI that I spent, over a year researching. My first AI project was in 1999. I have been working with AI for years. I teach at university level AI courses. I worked for Google for 6 years, where I helped organizations implement AI, and I can give you a whole list of people who I direct. What's funny is that we've been using AI in devices. If you have Netflix, you've been using AI and may not have realized it. Authors who are like, well, AI is to help you writing. You've been using grammar checkers, which is technically a form of AI, for 30 plus years. Spell checkers, another form of AI. And yet all of a sudden it's now new. It's something, revolutionary. I am working with two companies. I've got two companies. One is a startup. We've been funded. It's an AI company. I've got another new startup that I've just, begun working on this year, which is an AI company. I'm not against AI at all. I live and breathe it. I just know what it can do and it can't do. And
Right.
that, I think, is the message that I continuously want to, hone in is, don't fall for the hype. understand what their true capabilities are, figure out what your customers actually want. It may or may not be AI, and most likely right now it's not AI, and then go and figure out how you're going to do it.
Right. You know, Chris, I could talk to you forever about and for like keep talking about this for hours and hours because it's such a huge topic for me because I think there's so many things about companies where they do forget about the customer. And it was, even like that phone conversation, it's like, I just want to talk to somebody. And then through all the different aspects of where AI is going right now, you have a wealth of information and knowledge. So how can our listeners continue the conversation with you directly, connect with you, see what you're doing, learn about your two companies, because that's always great too, because we always love promoting new companies.
Yeah, the easiest way to do that is just find me on my website. So you can reach out to me at chrishood.com. Really easy, CHRISHOOD.com. And on my website, you will find my blog, previous podcast, my books, how to reach out to me if you want any advice. All of it is pretty easy to find right there, chrishood.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for being a guest on the Unstoppable Leadership Spotlight podcast. And listeners, please reach out and connect with Chris. And if you have enjoyed this conversation, please hit subscribe, share it with your friends, let your colleagues know about it. Our goal is to create amazing leaders. If we can make great leaders, maybe we can make a change in the world. So I'm Jaclyn Strominger. I am your high performance coach and the host of Unstoppable Leadership Spotlight podcast. Thank you all for listening. And again, make sure that you subscribe and check out Chris's website as well. Thank you so much. I'm Jaclyn Strominger, and I want to thank you so much for listening to the Unstoppable Leadership Spotlight, Influential Leaders and Their Game-Changing Insights podcast. If you are a successful CEO, entrepreneur, or leader in your industry, and you have insights you would like to share, we want you to be a guest on this program. So please visit go.leaptoyoursuccess.com/podcast. And if you have gotten something out of this interview and you'd like to share the episode on social media, just go ahead and take a screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on socials. If you know somebody who would be a great guest, please tag them on social media and let them know about the show and include the hashtag Unstoppable Leadership Spotlight. I'd love seeing your posts and your guest suggestions. So we regularly are putting out new episodes and content. So please make sure you don't miss any episodes and go ahead and hit subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and they mean so much to me and my team. You want to know more about the podcast or about Leap to Your Success? Just go to the website leaptoyoursuccess.com or follow me, Jaclyn Strominger, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Just plug in my name, Jaclyn, that's JACLYN .Strominger, STROMINGER, and follow me on all the socials. So thank you so much for listening, and remember, be unstoppable.